Good afternoon. Today we are going to go over Project 2. So we're going to start with Lesson 8. So please note if you need additional help with these problems, go ahead and watch these videos. You can also find which topics are related and do those topics first, and you can match up those recordings with those topics. So our first question is, a praying mantis is about 1/2 to 6 inches long. Your biology teacher brings one to class and tells you it is 4/3 to the negative second power inches long. Remove the negative exponent and calculate the size of the insect. So we've got our 4/3 to the negative second power. So the first thing we want to do is get rid of that negative. In order to get rid of that negative, we flip the numerator and the denominator, or we take the reciprocal. So that means the 3 is going to move to the numerator, the 4 is going to move to the denominator, and when we do that, the negative drops out. So now we have 3/4 to the second. So remember, to the second power just means 3/4 times 3/4. And then we multiply fractions straight across, so 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16. So we get 9/16. Another way we could do this is using the power rule. And if we go ahead and use the power rule says we have 3 to the first power, and then we're doing to the second power. So we take 1 times 3, because remember, on that 3 there's an invisible exponent. Invisible exponents are always 1. So we take 1 times 2, because we multiply when we use the power rule. 1 times 2 is 2. So 3 to the second, which is 9. And then we take 4 to the first, and then we're taking that to the second power. So once again, because there's no exponent, it's a 1. So we have 2 times 1 is 2. So 4 to the second is 16. So once again, we have 3 to the second over 4 to the second, which is 9/16. So either way you want to do it is just fine. Let's go ahead and go to the next problem. The weight of the grain of rice can be written with the formula 4v to the negative second power and all of that to the third power. Simplify your answer as much as possible and do not use a negative exponent. So here, the first thing we want to do is get rid of that negative exponent. So once again, I said with negative exponents, we want to go ahead and take the reciprocal. In order to take the reciprocal, we've got to know what's on bottom. V divided by what number is still V? V divided by 1 is still V. So notice that we're not changing anything. We're just taking the V and writing in that invisible 1. So we've got V over 1, and V is to the negative second power. So to get rid of the negative, we have to flip it. So the 1 moves to the top, the V moves to the bottom, and please note that the square goes with it. Once again, I'll show you that again. So the 1 goes to the top, the V goes to the bottom, and the square goes with it. And when the 2 goes down, we lose that negative exponent. So now on top, we're left with 4 times 1 over V squared, all to the third power. So 4 times 1 on top is just 4. So we get 4V squared to the third power. Then this is where we can use our power rule. So we take the exponent on the 4, which is a 1. 1 times 3 is 3. So we get 4 to the third. And then on bottom, we have 3 times the exponent on the V is 2. So we get 3 times 2 is 6. So we get 4 to the third is 64 over V to the sixth. And that's our answer. Also note that you can always write 4V squared out 3 times. And if that helps you do it, go for it. And if you're struggling with the power rule, once again, please be sure to watch the video on the power rule that recording might also help you make more sense of the power rule. What is the area of a rectangle if the length is 5x to the negative 2 and the width is 2x to the 5th? So we've got our rectangle here. We've got 5x to the negative 2 power. We got 2x to the 5th power. Then we want to find the area. Remember, area of a rectangle is equal to length times width. So I'm going to take my length times my width. Okay. Now we want to go ahead and use the product rule. So remember, the product rule states that when we have exponents with the same base that are being multiplied, we add the exponents. So in other words, we're going to take our 5 and our 2 and we're going to multiply those together. And then we're going to multiply our x's together. And in order to do that, we take our exponents and we add them together. Remember, when we're multiplying, the product rule says that we add our exponents. So we get negative 2 plus 5. So 5 times 2 is 10. And then x to the negative 2 plus 5, negative 2 plus 5 is 3. So we get 10x to the third. Now let's go ahead and find the volume of a cube if one side is y to the fourth over 2. Hint, v equals side to the third. So we take y to the fourth over 2 and all of that to the third power, because once again we're trying to find volume. So here we just simply need to use our power rule. So we've got 3 times the exponent on the y, which is our 4. So 3 times 4 is 12. And then we're going to take 2 to the third power, because 1 times 3 is 3. So we get 2 to the third power, which is 8. So we get y to the 12th over 8. And that's it. We're going to move to lesson 9 now. So once again, if you need additional help, there's the videos listed below. And also please try and do the topics in your pie chart that are related as well. So write the degree of the leading coefficient of this polynomial. Sorry, the degree and the leading coefficient of this polynomial. So the degree on this one is what we're going to look at first. So polynomials consist of terms, and our terms are separated by the minus signs or plus signs. So you can see right here we have 4 terms. Okay? And each term has a degree. So now we're going to go ahead and find the degree of each term. So the first one, the degree is 10. Because we just take our variable and we take the exponent on that variable. And once again, there's only one variable, so it really is just the exponent there. Okay, now we're going to jump to our next term. So we've got 3 different variables here, and we've got our first variable is 2, has an exponent of 2. Our second variable has an exponent of 6. So we're going to go ahead and add those 2 together. And then we have one more variable which has an invisible 1 written there. Because remember, when there's no exponent listed, we know the exponent to be 1. So we go ahead and add those together to find our degree. So 2 plus 6 plus 1 is 9. So the degree of that term is going to be 9. So the first term, the degree is 10. The second term, the degree is 9. And then we're going to jump to our next term. Notice that we don't have a variable on this one. So because we don't have a variable, we know that the exponent on our variable is 0. Because it would just make it a 1. And 7 times 1 is just 7. So once again, if you just have a coefficient as a term, the degree is always going to be 0. Okay, and then let's jump to the next term. We've got x to the 5th, so 5, we're going to drop that down. Y to the 6th, we're going to drop the 6 down. We're going to add the 2 together. When we do so, we get 11. So now we have degrees of 10, 9, 0, and 11 on our terms. To find the degree of our polynomial, we simply take the highest degree, which in this case is our 11. So therefore, the polynomial has a degree of 11. Then we want to find the leading coefficient. To find the leading coefficient, we simply look at the term with the highest degree, and we look at the coefficient in front. Remember, the coefficient is the number in front. So in this case, we don't have a number listed. So what's a number times anything equals anything? You're right, 1. So we have -1 is our leading coefficient. So we've got a degree of 11, and our leading coefficient is -1. Now we're going to find the greatest common factor of 12v to the 4th, y to the 3rd, x to the 6th, and 16y to the 8th, x squared. Okay, this one is a lot harder than the one that you're going to have to do in your project, but I wanted to show you something a little harder, so hopefully you'll be able to simplify it down and apply it to the problem in the project. So we're going to go ahead and do a factor tree. Hopefully you remember what factor trees are. If not, please go back and watch the video on the greatest common factor. So we're going to break the 12 down. What times what equals 12? Well, 6 times 2. We can break the 6 down to 3 times 2. And that's as far as we can break it down. So we've got 3, 2, 2 as our bottom rungs of the 12. So 3 times 2 times 2 is equal to 12. Okay, now we're going to break our v to the 4th down. And that's simply v times v times v times v. Y to the 3rd down, and x to the 6th. Then we're going to go ahead and break down our 16y to the 8th, x squared. So 16 we break down to 4 and 4, which we further break down to 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which is equal to 16. So we've got all our 2's there on bottom. Y to the 8th breaks down to 8y's, and x squared breaks down to 2x's. Now, to find the greatest common factor, we want to find the factors that they have in common. So, I'm going to look at my 12v to the 4th, y to the 3rd, x to the 6th, and see which factors it has in common with our 16y to the 8th, x squared. So as far as numbers go, I have a 2 on my 12 and a 2 on my 16. A 2 on my 12, a 2 on my 16. And then variables, I don't have any v's on my 16y to the 8th, x squared. So I'm not going to include any v's, but I do have y's in common. So I have 3 y's that are in common. And then I have 2 x's that are in common. And then, now that I have all the ones that are in common circled, I'm going to go ahead and drop those down. So that leaves me with 2 times 2 times y times y times y times x times x. And when we go ahead and multiply that out, that's 4 y to the 3rd x squared. So that would be my greatest common factor. Note your problem's a lot easier, like I said, but if they do not seem to have any numbers in common, then let's think about what number they would have in common. So let's say I had a 7 and a 5. They don't have any numbers in common. However, we can always divide both 7 and 5 by 1. So if they don't seem like they have anything in common, please note they always have a 1 in common. Let's go ahead and jump to lesson 10. Once again, those are the videos if you need more help. So a billboard has an area of y squared minus 8y plus 12, and your company would like to use it for advertising. Marketing needs the measurements of the base and height in order to craft their image. Find the dimensions by factoring the polynomial. So we're going to go ahead and factor. If you're struggling with factoring, I'm going to jump right into it. but the video I have on factoring goes through more of the steps. So if you're struggling with it, please go through those steps. So we go ahead and do a factor tree for our first number. So y times y is equal to y squared. And then we have to do it for our last number. So what times what could equal 12? Well, we have 1 times 12 could equal 12. 2 times 6 could equal 12. 3 times 4 could equal 12. And that's it. So now we're going to go ahead and write our y in the first place. And then we're going to go ahead and pick some numbers from our 12 to put into the second space in our parentheses. So I always start with the ones closest together because those are usually the ones that are going to be correct. So our closest factors of 12 would be 3 times 4, or our closest pair that multiply together to equal 12 would be 3 times 4. So I'm going to put the 3 in and the 4 in. Then we need to determine our sign. So we always look at the second sign first. It's a positive, so my options to multiply together to get a positive are either positive, positive, or negative, negative. Because remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. So then once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and look at my first sign. And my first sign is a negative. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my negative, negative. So I put in my negatives. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and check using the FOIL method, and we're going to use just the O and the I because we want to see if we get that middle term, that negative 8y. So we get negative 4 times y plus negative 3 times y. So we get negative 4y plus negative 3y is negative 7y. And we wanted negative 8y, so it's not quite what we wanted. So we're going to try our next pair, our 2 and our 6. Then once again, we're going to use the O and the I of FOIL, so the outside, y times negative 6 is negative 6y. And then the inside, negative 2 times y is negative 2y. So we get negative 6y plus negative 2y is negative 8y, which is what we were looking for. Sorry, let me go back to that. So therefore, that is our answer and would be the dimensions that we found for our billboard. So that would be our answer, y minus 2 times y minus 6. Okay. And let's go to this last one. This last one is kind of tricky. Liam created a painting that has an area of w squared minus 12w plus 36. The local gallery uses standard frames that are 15 inches by 15 inches. Factor the polynomial to find the dimensions of Liam's painting. The base and height of the painting must be less than 15 inches. What must w be in order for the painting to fit in the gallery frame? So first of all, we're going to go ahead and factor so that we can find our length times our width, because remember the area of a rectangle is length times width. So we need a length and we need a width. So we're going to go ahead and factor. So once again, we're going to look at our first number, which is a w squared. So we're going to write w times w. And our last number, what times what equals 36? Well, 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and 6 and 6. We're going to put w's in the first spot. Then we're going to look at, or we're going to take our closest numbers together, which is our 6's. Then we're going to look at our sign. This one is a positive, so we have positive, positive, or negative, negative. Note that if you had a negative there, your options would be a positive, negative, or a negative, positive. Okay? On both of my examples, I did a positive, so I have positive, positive, or negative, negative. Then I go ahead and look at that first sign, and it's a negative. So I'm going to put a negative in there, and a negative in there. Then I'm going to go ahead and check using the O and the I of FOIL. we get negative 6w plus negative 6w, which is negative 12w, which is exactly what I wanted. So I get w minus 6 times w minus 6, which is the answer. And please note that we can write that as w minus 6 squared. Now there's a second part of the problem. That's not actually what we're looking for. So we know our width and our height, our base and our height is w minus 6 and our height is w minus 6. So we know that it has to be less than 15 inches. So we're going to go ahead and write w minus 6 is less than 15 inches because that's what we need our painting to be. So then we want to go ahead and solve for w because the question asks what must w be in order for the painting to fit in the gallery frame. So to get w by itself, we're going to add 6 to both sides, and we get w is less than 21. So w is less than 21 would be our answer. Thank you for watching. If you have any additional questions, please be sure to contact me. Good luck on Project 2.